Hello and welcome to the next edition of the HP Discover podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on IT innovation and how it's making an impact on people's lives. Once again, we're focusing on how companies are adapting to the new style of IT to improve IT performance, gain new insights, and deliver better user experiences as well as better overall business results. Our next innovation panel discussion focuses on the changing role of IT service management in a hybrid computing world. As IT systems, resources, assets, and information are more scattered across more enterprise locations and devices, as well as across myriad service environments, how can IT leaders hope to know where their stuff is, who's using it, how to secure it, and then accurately pay for it? Well, it turns out that the advanced software asset management methods can enforce compliance, reduce risk, cut costs, and enhance end-user productivity, even as the complexity of IT itself increases. We'll now hear from 4 IT leaders about how they have improved IT service management despite such challenges, and we'll learn how the increased use of big data and analytics, when applied to ITSM, improves inventory control and management. And we'll hear how a service brokering role can also be used to great advantage thanks to ITSM-generated information. So, to learn more about how ITSM is solving multiple problems for IT, we're joined by our panel. Please join me in welcoming Charles Joubert, the change and configuration expert. He's based in Pretoria, South Africa. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you, Donna.
We're also here with Julian Kuiper, the expert in asset and license management. He's based in Paris. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
We're also here with Patrick Bellier. He's the IT Quality and Process Director at Staria, based in Paris as well. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, and good afternoon.
And lastly, Edward Jackson joins us. He's Operational System Support Manager at RedCentric, based in Harrogate, UK. Welcome, Edward.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Let's talk a bit first about software asset management. There seems to be a lot going on with getting more information about software, how it's distributed and used. This becomes more of an issue as users can get to software so easily. But how should they get it into the organization and how that should be managed, it remains a big challenge. So tell me a little bit, Julian, how are you seeing organizations deal with this issue about, on one hand, the need to allow for innovation and self-service and decision-making around software, and at the same time protect an organization?
Right. So actually, software asset management, as often referred as SAM, has to square a quite complicated circle. So the one of ensuring compliance in a company, compliance with regard to software installation and usage, and also ensuring that we do that while ensuring cost saving, right? And while doing this, we must ensure that the software that are entering a company are not actually dangerous for a company, so not letting like virus come in or opening threats or all this kind of complication. And while we do this, so those are 3 very technical and very factual environments, but you also want to please your end user, right? So if you don't please your end user, you don't give them the ability to work, they're going to be frustrated, they're going to be complain about IT, and it's already a complicated enough topic that you don't want to enter this. So you have to square that circle by implementing the correct processes first, while giving the correct information around how to behave in the whole, I would say, end-to-end software lifecycle.
And asset management, when it comes to software, is not small potatoes. There's some very big numbers involved if you don't manage it properly, and so it's perhaps something that you can easily bring to the attention of leadership and get them to fund this.
Sure, it's actually a very inconvenient truth. An audit from a publisher or a vendor can reach easily 7 to 8 digits. So a typical company has between 10 and 50 publishers, so that's 7 digits per publisher. You can easily do the math. That's typically the financial risk. You also have a big reputation risk, right? If you don't pay software and you're caught into tribunal, you end up being on the press. You don't want your company, your branding to be at that level of exposure. So you really have to bring this risk at the attention of IT leaders, CIO level. But they don't really want to hear that, right? Because it costs a lot. And now that they hear this risk, they cannot avoid the investment. And investment can be quite large as well. But you have to compare this investment with regards to your overall software spending. And I would say that typically, if this investment is reaching 5% of your overall yearly software spending, you're on the right level, right? It's a big number, but still it's worth investing. So coming across with this message to IT management and getting the ear, so the person who is interested in the topic, and then getting the investment authorization, you've gone through the half of the journey, right? Implementation afterwards will be defining your processes, finding the right tool, implementing it, and running it.
And when it comes to value to the end user, by having a understood, clearly defined process in place, allows them to get to the software they want, make sure they can use it, look for it on a sanctioned list, for example. So while some end users might see this as a hurdle, I think it enables them eventually to get the tools they need when they need them.
Right. So at the beginning, every end user will see all those software asset management processes as a burden, as a complication. So you have to invest a lot in communication, smart communication with your company, make people understand that it's everyone's responsibility to be compliant, and also that it can help recovering money. So if you do this in a smart way and that the process has a delivery time not longer than 3 days, then you're good, right? You have to ensure that, of course, you have a software catalog which is up to date with an easy access through your typical corporate portal. And once all those points from the end-to-end software lifecycle are appearing, so software approval, then software delivery, then software reusage, and software also disposal, when this is lean, then you've made your journey, right? So communication around this, and then it will not see anymore as a pain, it will see as a business enabler.
Now, asset management doesn't just cover the realm of software, it includes hardware, and in a network environment, that can be very large numbers of equipment and devices, endpoints as well as network equipment. So, Edward at RedCentric, tell us a little bit about how you see the management of assets through the lens of a network.
Yeah, I mean, we have over 10,000 devices in management, pretty much from a multitude of vendors. And we use asset management in terms of kind of portfolio management, so effectively, managing the models, managing the versions, managing the software. We also have a configuration management tool that effectively takes the configurations off these devices and effectively runs them against compliancy. So we can basically run them against a gold build or silver build. We can also run them against security flaws. So it effectively gives us an end-to-end management. So all this feeds into our ITSM product, and then also it feeds into things like the CMDB. So we have a complete end-to-end knowledge of the software and obviously of the hardware, and effectively of the service that we are giving the customer.
So that knowing of yourself, your organization, allows for that lifecycle benefit that Julian referred to, and eventually that gives you the freedom to manage and extend those benefits into things like help desk support, even operations where the performance can be maintained better.
Yeah, it's a 360-degree organisation in terms of, from a hardware being delivered on site to being discovered, being automatically populated into the multitude of support and operational systems that we use, and then obviously into the ITSM side. So effectively, if you don't get it right from the start and you don't have the correct models and, for a Cisco device like the iOS on there where it has security flaws, then you're going to be highlighted straight away in terms of being a vulnerable part of the network. So yeah, you need to get it right straight away.
Great. Now, looking at the different types of tools and approaches, this goes beyond thinking about assets alone. We're thinking also about scale. So your organization, tell us about it and why the scale and ability to manage so many devices and information is important.
Being an MSP, we obviously have a multitude, about 1,000 external customers, and each one of those has a different service. It could range from voice to storage, data to cloud. So effectively, we need to be able to manage, within the 10,000 plus devices that we have. We need to understand the actual service end to end. So there's a bit of service level management in there. It all ties down to effectively having the correct kind of vendor, the correct kind of service mapped, and effectively the information needs to be in the CI, so we can give that information to support. So if you have an incident which is automatically generated on the management platforms, it goes into the ITSM platform. we can effectively create an affected customer list within, say, 5 minutes of the actual network outage, and email the customer pretty much directly from that, or SMS them. There's a multitude of ways of doing it, but it's all due to having a tight control on the assets that are out there on the field, having an asset management tool that can actually control that, and effectively being able to understand the topology of the network and where everything lies, which gives us the ability then to create relationships between the devices and have a hierarchical kind of view of logical and physical entities.
But you have confidence that regardless of the scale and volume of the devices and regardless of the amount of data that you're collecting, that those aren't issues in terms of your performance, that you work with tools and platforms that can handle that scale?
Yeah, I mean, all the kind of tools that we have are pretty much carrier grade, so we can effectively scale a lot more than the 10,000 devices that we currently have. And if you set it up and you plan it right, then it doesn't really matter how many devices you have in management. It's effectively you've got the right processes and structure to be able to manage that.
Great. All right. Well, we've talked about software, we've talked about hardware and networks. Nowadays, of course, services, cloud services, microservices, APIs are also a big part of the mix. IT consumes them, they make value from them, and they extend that value into their organization. Let's go to Patrick at Styria. How are you seeing in your organization an evolution of ITSM into a service brokering role, and do the current crop or generation of ITSM tools and platforms give you a segue or a road to that service brokering capacity?
Becoming a service broker. So what's needed for that is we need to offer the ability to extend the current service that we have to the service that are today available on the cloud. And for doing that, we need to extend the capability of our framework. So today our framework has been designed in order to run the operation on behalf of our customers. To run the operation on the customer side or the operation on our data center. But more or less is a traditional IT. And the current ITSM framework is able to do that. What today is missing and what we are facing is we have some new players. Customers, in fact, want to add some new facilities, and the facilities today are available on the cloud, and delivering a very short term an extension of their data center. And we need to offer that capabilities. And what is very important, in fact, is to offer one interface toward the customers, and the ability, in fact, to integrate or to work with several service providers at the same time.
Tell us a bit about Staria. You're a large organization, 20,000 employees, multiple countries. Tell us a bit about your organization.
Yeah, so we are today we are an IT service provider. So and we are managing different kind of services. So from infrastructure management, application management, business process outsourcing, system integration, etc. All over Europe. So it's mainly in Europe, leveraging the capabilities with factories that we have today in India and in Poland.
Very good. Now we've looked at what ITSM does. We haven't dug into too much about where it's going next in terms of what analysis of this data can bring to the table. So Charles, tell me a little bit about how you see the use of analytics improving what you've been doing in your setting. How does baseline results from ITSM, the tools we've been talking about, improve when you start to analyze that data, index it, cleanse it, get at the real underlying information that can then be turned into business benefits?
Well, looking at the inadequacies of your processes is really the start of all of this. The moment you start scratching at this vast amount of information you have, you start seeing the errors of your ways and opportunities to correct them. And that's really an exciting time in ITSM. Is we now have the ability to start mining this magnitude of information we have that's been locked inside attachments in all of these ITSM solutions. We can now start indexing all that unstructured data and start using it. And it's a fantastic time to be in IT.
Give me an example, perhaps, of where you've seen this at work, maybe a help desk environment. How can you immediately get benefits from starting to analyze systems and IT information?
So in the service desk where I'm involved in, we have about a total of 1 million interactions over the past few years. So what we've done with big data is indexed the categorization of all these interactions. And with a tool from HP, Smart Analytics and Smart Ticketing, we're able to predict the categorization of these interactions to an accuracy of about 84% at the moment, which largely assists the service desk agents to more accurately get the correct information to the correct service teams the first time, with less errors in escalation, which in turn leads to greater customer satisfaction.
Very good. Julian, how about you? Where does the analysis of what you're doing with asset management, for example, play a role? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, well, software asset management is already quite complex on premise, and we all know today that the IT world is moving to the cloud, and this is the next challenge of software asset management, because the whole point of the cloud is that you don't know where your systems are. However, the licensing model, as they are today, they refer to CPU, to on-premise, to physical assets. And understanding how you can adapt your licensing model to this new concept, well, not that new anymore now, but to this new concept of cloud is something that even the software publishers and vendors have not really adapted their models. So you also have to face some vendors or publishers who are not willing to adapt their model, especially to be able to audit specific customers and get more revenue. So you have on one hand to implement the right processes and the right tools, which are now going to navigate in a very complex environment, very difficult to scan, very difficult to analyze. At the same time that you will have to update all your contracts. And sometimes this will not be possible. Okay? Some vendors will have a very easy licensing model if you are implementing their software in their own cloud environment. But in another cloud environment, in a competitor, they might make this journey quite complicated for you. So this will be complex and will be resolved by correct data to analyze and also some legal workforce and purchasing workforce to try to adapt the contracts.
In many ways, right now, we never really own software. We only lease it or borrow it. We're charged in a variety of ways. But soon, we seem to be going more to that pay-as-you-use, pay-as-you-consume. But what about the underlying information associated with those services? Would logs go along with your cloud services? Should you be able to access that so that you can analyze it in the context of your other IT infrastructure? Any thoughts going to you, Edward, as a managed services environment and a management of networks provider? Do you see that as you provide more services, that you'll be providing insight or IT service management data, metadata, along with the services?
Yeah, I think over the past 5 or 6 years that the kind of level of service that we offer was pretty much started as an infrastructure as a service, but it's now very much that kind of a SaaS offering, managed OS, and everything up the technology stack into managed applications. And it's getting to a point now that we're taking on the managing of bespoke applications that effectively customers wanted to hand over the support to us. So not only do we have to understand the technology and the operating systems that goes on these platforms in the cloud, but we also have to understand the bespoke software that's effectively sitting on them and all the necessary kind of like dependencies for that. So the more that we kind of invest in the cloud technologies, the more that the complexity of the service that we offer our customers becomes. And we have a multitude of management systems that effectively can monitor all the different elements of this and then piece them together in kind of like an SLM perspective. So you get like a service level model and you get some like service assurance on top of that.
Well, as we're here at HP Discover, we've heard about Idle on Demand, Vertica on Demand as part of the Haven on Demand. So they're bringing these analytics capabilities to cloud services, APIs as well. And I think they're going to be, as I understand it, applying them to more IT operations issues. So it's quite possible that we'll start to see a mashup, if you will, between a cloud service, but also the underlying IT information associated with that service. Let's go back to Patrick at Styria. Any thoughts about where this combination of IT service management within a cloud environment develops? How do you see it going?
Yeah. The system today exists. So traditional IT today, we have the framework in order to run the traditional IT. We have the tools in order to design the catalog of service for traditional IT. And we also have the tooling for designing and consuming cloud services. So more or less, if we are talking about HP products, so we are running HP Service Manager for traditional IT, legacy IT. And we are running HP CSA for managing and operating the cloud. What today is missing is, for an end-user perspective, so we need to have a unique way for reconciliating the catalog of services that are today hosted in Service Manager and the catalog of services that are in CSA or in another tooling. And we need to have only one and unique portal for doing that. So it's what we are expecting today with HP Propel, is to offer the capabilities to aggregate services that are coming from various sources and to extend that by offering also, because when a service is live, we need to offer some additional features like collaboration, like incident management, and access to knowledge base, collaboration between the service desk and the end user, collaboration between end users, etc. There is also another important point here, the service integration. Because as service provider, if we will have, in fact, to deliver and to control the service that are delivered by some partners, by some cloud service providers. So in order to do that, we need to have a strong integration, so not only a partnership, but also a strong integration. And that integration should be multi-point, so meaning that as soon as we are able to integrate service provider with us, that integration will be de facto available for our other customers. So we are also expecting that from Propel. And it's not only an integration for provisioning service, but it's also an integration for running the other processes, collaboration, incident management, request, change, etc.
So Patrick mentioned HP Propel. Do any of you also have some experience with that or are looking at it to solve other problems? Yes, Charles.
Definitely looking at it to give a single view for all our end users. There's various support departments in the area where I work. And the end user really wants one place to ask for fixing a broken light, to fixing a broken PC, to installing software. It's ease of use. That is what they are looking for. So yes, we're definitely looking at Propel.
Okay, let's take another look to the future. We've heard quite a bit about the Internet of Things and more devices, more inputs, more data. Do you think that's something that's going to be an issue for ITSM? Or is that something separate? Do you view that the infrastructure that's been created for ITSM lends itself to something like managing the Internet of Things, more devices on a network? Let's start with you, Julian.
Yeah, for me as asset management expert and software asset management expert, we have to draw a line somewhere and say, okay, there is this Internet of Things, and there are some data which we have to say we don't want to make any analysis of this. There are things that are here on Internet, that's fine, but too much engineering around that might be overkilling the processes. We also have to be very careful about false good ideas. I personally think that bring your own device is a false good idea. It brings tremendous issue with regards to who takes care of an asset which is owned by a personal person in a corporate environment, who deals with IT. Oh, today it's perfect. I bring my computer I'm used to in the office, tomorrow it's broken. Who's going to fix it? When I buy a software for this machine, who's going to pay it? Who's going to be responsible for it in compliance? This, on a high-level perspective, CIO might think it's very intelligent and very advanced to allow people to use with what they are used to. But really the legal things behind is quite complicated, and I really would qualify this as a false good idea.
At Red-Centric, Edward, you mentioned that scale doesn't concern you. You're pretty confident that the systems that you can access can handle almost any scale. How about that Internet of Things? Even if it shouldn't be in the purview legally or in terms of the role of IT, it does seem like the systems that have been developed for IT service management are applicable to this issue. Any thoughts about more and more devices on a network?
Yeah, I think, I mean, in terms of scale of things, if the things are in your control and, you know, you've got some structure and, you know, management around them. So in terms of how we manage our devices, it's effectively, you know, a closed shop. We don't keep anything in that's, you know, that shouldn't be in there. So in terms of going forward, I think things like, you know, big data and smart analytics and, you know, layered on top of that would give us a massive benefit in terms of how we could deliver our service and more importantly, how we can manage the service. So once you've got, you know, your processes in place and you can understand those processes and you've put the structure and you've got basically the kind of management platform that you can think that's going to handle that, then effectively you can basically leverage kind of things like, you know, big data, smart analytics and data mining to enable you to offer, you know, a sophisticated level of support that, you know, perhaps your competitors can't do.
You know, it's occurred to me as I've been listening to many speakers today is that almost any of the major challenges, whether it's big data, whether it's cloud service brokering, whether it's management of assets for legal or jurisdiction or compliance, IT service management and the data and the management of that data is central to any of these problems. It really, I think we've seen in the last several years, what was a fairly esoteric activity, IT service management, has become much more prominent and is in a position to solve many more problems. So I'd like to just end our conversation with your thoughts along those lines. Charles, ITSM, is it more important than ever? How has it become central?
Absolutely. With the advent of big data, we suddenly have the tools to start mining this information and using it to our benefit, to give better service to our end users.
Julian, role of ITSM, is it, am I off on some pie in the sky mentality here, or do you really think it is more core, more central, more important than ever?
So ITSM is definitely core to any IT environment because ITSM is the way to put the correct price tag behind a service. So service charging, service costing. If you don't do that correctly, then you basically don't tell the truth to your customer or to your end user, right? So now if you mix this with the dimension of Internet of Things and all the possibility to have anything with an IP address available on the network, then you enter in a kind of a more philosophical thoughts and say, in a corporate environment, let's assume you have a tag on your car keys that help you to find them, which is linked on internet. You know, those things, those gizmos are happening today. So this brings some personalized information into your corporate environment. What does the corporate environment do about this? The brand of your car, which is on your car tag, they will know that you bought a brand new car. They will know all this kind of information, which is personal. So then we have to think about ethic as well. So drawing a line of what the corporate environment will take care of and what is private will be essential in this Internet of Things. Like when you've got your mobile phone, is it personal, is it business? Drawing a line will be very important.
But at least we'll have the means to, one, draw that line and then enforce the drawing of that line.
Right. Correct. Totally correct.
Edward, role of ITSM, bigger than ever or not so much?
I think it's bigger than ever. I mean, it's the front end of your business and the back end of your business. It's what the customers see and it's how you deliver your service. And, you know, effectively, if you haven't got it right, then you're not going to be able to deliver the service that the customer expects. So you might have the best, you know, products in the world, but if your ITSM systems and your ITSM team effectively aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, then, you know, it's not going to be any good and the customer's going to see that.
And lastly, to Styria and Patrick, the role of ITSM, bigger than ever. How do you view it?
The role of the ITSM for me, it will not change because We did that in the past, and we'll still continue to have that in the future also, because at the end, what we will deliver is service. So in order to deliver the service, we need also to monitor the service. We need also to have the detailed configuration of the service. We will have to run processes, incident, etc. So it will not change. What we will change in the future is the diversity of service providers that we will have. So either as a service provider, so we'll have to work with a lot of service providers. So the SLA will be very more complex to manage. So service management in such case will be critical. But now if you are just taking the place of the customer, for the customer, he will have the same. So he will have to not to manage, but to govern services that are provided by a lot of service providers. So in order to control that, you will have the same issue.
So the complexity goes up, therefore the need to manage that complexity also needs to go up.
What is also very important in the cloud, in the license management in the cloud, is that very often the ROI of a cloud adoption has ignored or really minimized the impact of software costs. So when you tell your customer, internal customer or external customer that this XYZ cloud offer will cost them that amount of money, you will most likely have to add up 20-30% because of the impact of the software cost afterwards.
Very interesting. Okay, I'm afraid we will have to leave it there. We've been talking to a panel of experts about IT service management and its role in a hybrid computing world. And we've found out how the future of analytics plays into IT service management, big data included, as well as many of the other scaling issues around mobility, Internet of Things, and the licensing and legal issues around all assets in IT. So a big thank you to our panel. We've been joined by Charles Schubert, the change and configuration expert and based in Pretoria, South Africa. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Donna.
Julian Kuiper has joined us. He's an expert in asset and license management based in Paris. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Patrick Bailly is IT Quality and Process Director at Styria in Paris. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And Edward Jackson, Operational System Support Manager at RedCentric in the UK. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a big thank you to our audience as well for joining us for this special new style of IT discussion. We've explored solid evidence from a number of adopters and experts on how big data changes everything for IT, for businesses and governments, as well as for you and me. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of HP-sponsored discussions. Thanks again for joining us, and don't forget to come back next time.